Hey everybody, movie reviewer next door here, and I kind of want to do a different type of video today. More of a discussion on a recent event that's happened in YouTube, and kind of something in conjunction with that someone I know on YouTube or that I watch on YouTube personally did a video about. I'm sorry if my face looks a bit red when I do this kind of lighting. Yeah, I took a shower not long ago, so I'm gonna look a little red. Um, but I wanted to do this in a normal light to kind of show that this isn't a movie review. The issue of film critics on YouTube. Now, am I saying that I am definitively the best or even a great film critic? No, I'm not. What I want to talk about in particular, Chris Stuckmann, um, who recently released a video called "We Have to Talk About This." I think that's what it was called, and he's kind of talking about Madam Web and kind of not. Madam Web is a recent Marvel movie put out by Sony. So, on the same level, I guess, as the Spider-Man, like the Spider Universe, the Homecoming, Far From Home, the multiverse one. So, I did watch it because I saw it was getting a very differing thing. Like it was very half and half, people liking it and disliking the video because I have the dislike thing brought back, which fuck you YouTube for getting rid of that. But mostly he talked about I already knew that he had stopped reviewing movies that he didn't care for or didn't like because he wanted to be positive. He wanted to be a film appreciation channel and not a film criticism channel. Even though some of his some of his highest viewed videos are his hilariosity reviews where he makes fun of films and says they're stupid, they're stupid, they're stupid. Which there's a way to do something like that and be criticizing it, but not laughing at filmmakers actually trying to do their job. And well, if you ask me, I don't, I try not to come off pompous. I try my very best not to, because I'm not that person. I'm not showboaty. Um, if something good happens to me, yeah, I'm gonna celebrate it, but I'm not gonna like show it off on Instagram and everything and be like that. But him talking like the way he does in this video really pissed me off in a way where I was like, your entire channel has been shitting on people's work and most of the time criticizing it normally. But whenever he talks about movies that he likes, he's a lot less interesting, and it doesn't seem like he's really saying much. He says the same thing over and over in a lot of his videos, kind of like your movie sucks. Now that I've watched more and more of his stuff and watching his recent stuff, like his quickie reviews, I'm now realizing that he's very repetitive in his arguments. He's like, oh, the subtlety, the nuance, the undertones, hidden subtext, all of those words get used multiple times. And that's kind of how it is with Chris Stuckman, to the point where it feels like he's not writing his own reviews, even though he does like a 5 to 7 minute video a couple times a week, which he's living comfortably doing that. He's the biggest movie critic on YouTube, pretty pretty much like independent movie critic that's not working for a news organization or a bigger organization like Channel Awesome. But a lot of what he said in this video really annoyed me. Now, the whole reasoning behind Chris Stuckman stopping reviewing movies he didn't like is because, in his words, he is currently working on a film called Shelby Oaks. He's directing it. I don't know if he's starring in it. I don't think he is, but it's going to be a found footage film because Blair Witch is his favorite movie or something like that. Whatever. I don't care. Not my opinion doesn't matter in this. But what he said was that after starting making his own movie, he doesn't feel like disrespecting people's work. One thing he needs to learn perfectly clear is that I know I said that wrong, but whatever, let's roll with it. One thing that needs to be cleared up. Film criticism is not degrading if you're actually criticizing. Now, someone that I watch on YouTube, um, OCP Communications, who works with other not works with, but he's friends with other critics like Matt Roller, Rambo Rap for Life, Italian Stallion 51. You, they have a bit of a group, Choice Voice. Um, he made a video about toxic positivity, which is basically where you're positive to the point where you're on purpose not saying anything negative in order to quote unquote make someone feel better about their work. Now, I don't feel like I am one of those people that does that. And there's also toxic negativity where you basically in order to be negative, you push yourself into being negative instead of just giving your true thoughts. What Chris Stuckmann is doing in this video and basically what he's been doing for the past couple years ever since he started making his own film is a big thing of toxic positivity. He doesn't want to and I feel like I know exactly why he doesn't want to say anything bad about any film now. And it's not like he's the first person to do it, but he is one of the biggest people to try doing this. But in his video about Madam Web, he's talking about like producers don't let directors do what they want to do. And he's talking about S.J. Clarkson, who is the director of Madam Web, who before doing Madam Web hasn't really done anything. I don't think she even did a feature film before Madam Web, which is something that Marvel and Sony and all these big companies keep doing. With Blue Beetle, they did this. With the Mortal Kombat movie, the newer one from 2021, they hired a director that had never done anything before, and then look how that turned out. It was a fucking piece of shit, and none of the characters were fun or interesting. And people love to say that that one was so fucking good. It's so much better than the 95 one. The 95 one where the characters actually had, I don't know, personality. The fight scenes were well done and weren't quick cutted to shit. Yeah, there wasn't blood and gore because it was PG-13, but it was still a lot more fun of a martial arts movie and a better adaptation of Mortal Kombat itself. And this is something Hollywood keeps doing, and I will never fucking understand it. If it's like they saw a short film and they're like, okay, we like your vision, we want to create this movie, kind of like Lights Out, then that's different. You have something to work on. You've seen that this director has a vision and you want to help them finish, like make a full product out of it. But with stuff like Mortal Kombat, Madam Web, and all these other things, I think the director just doesn't know how to do action. Because from what I've seen in the trailers, the editing just seems really weird. She doesn't seem to know exactly what she's doing. And again, I'm not a filmmaker, but I can criticize things when I see that they don't look great. And I kind of want to talk about Chris Stuckmann as a person and what he's doing with this and how I think it's ultimately harmful for the film criticism community and other film um, channels that to be honest, I want to recommend and probably link if I remember to that haven't done the things he's doing. I'll definitely link Rambo Raff for Life, Matt Roller's channel, and Fabio Italian Stallion, and all those. Um, because I like those guys. I think they're actually really cool people. Um, they give their true thoughts. They're not writing some train whenever a movie comes out and is getting blasted. They'll usually just give their honest opinion. And I love that. We need more people like that, less people like the work for fucking Channel Awesome, what a shitty company, and all of this stuff. But specifically on Chris Stuckmann, I have a theory that I've heard a lot of other people say that I actually do believe. And it's that he is being positive in this way in order to get an in into Hollywood. Because he's scared of one, losing early access, because a lot of critics of his height and fame on YouTube, they're at the point where companies are sending screeners, Blu-ray screeners or DVD screeners of their films, so that they can review them before anybody else can on YouTube or on in newspapers or on other websites like RogerEbert.com. And you that he's got like a way where he's like, oh, he's literally getting movies for free. And he's afraid, I'm saying my theory, I think he's afraid that if he starts criticizing big Hollywood movies like he used to, which is something that needs to be done because Hollywood is getting worse and worse and worse, and bigger companies are getting worse at making movies that are original or even just entertaining. Um, they've like completely ruled out the genre of horror because they're too scared to take a chance on anything. But he's afraid that if he criticizes too many Hollywood movies now, even though that's his entire career has been criticism of indie and Hollywood movies, mostly Hollywood, because he didn't really seem to care about indie before making indie films or his film. But he's afraid that these companies are going to go back to these random videos where he's criticizing films and he's going to not be able to get jobs in Hollywood, which to be honest is kind of pathetic. If you're not, he keeps talking about in the same video where he's talking about Madam Web and how the director didn't get to show her vision, which first of all, we don't even know if she should have directed a superhero movie because recently in Hollywood there have been a lot of instances of directors being completely put into different genres and then not working out. A good example would be freaking what's her name that did the Five Nights at Freddy's movie? I have to look it up. But that director, Emma Tammy, who did The Wind, which is like a Southern Gothic, like witch type of story, like similar to The Witch. And then you give her like a film that would be an in for a bunch of jump scares. And it 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 you get stuff like that and you're like, "Oh, whatever. It's just a director to attach." But with an independent film, which Finance at Freddy's is an indie film. It is put out by Blumhouse, which is an independent company, which means that they're not going with the highest of budgets in order for the directors to be able to put out their actual work, for the most part, uncompromised by producers because they're not super high budget. Finance at Freddy's was $20 million, one of their higher budget films. And that just seems weird. But another thing that I think Chris Stuckmann is trying to do is, well, his whole point about like they're not the Hollywood isn't letting this woman put in her true thoughts or her true story, yet he is censoring himself in the fatal attempt that in the extremely wishful thinking that because he's sucking up to Hollywood producers, he'll get a job directing a big budget movie. But he can't stick by his word. He is one of those people that depending on what will be best for him, he changes his opinion. Because you have again him saying, oh, S.J. Clarkson didn't get full creative control or whatever, even though he would have no fucking way of knowing that. And yes, I do believe that a lot of Hollywood producers don't give full creative control to their directors because they want whatever's the most marketable. But he has no way of knowing this There's no behind the scenes stuff that's saying that like, oh, certain things had to be changed. And he's acting as if he has insight into this just because he's working on an indie film. That makes absolutely no sense. And again, you're saying the right here, you're saying Hollywood is doing all of this. And then in the next like couple minutes, he's saying, I don't know for sure. So can you make up your mind, Chris? Can you make up your mind on if you're riding Hollywood's dick or if you're like, or if you're defending Hollywood? What the fuck are you doing? Do you want to work in Hollywood? Do you want to be in the cult that is Hollywood? Or are you okay with making content like this where you're trying to both defend and say bad things against Madam Web, which again, I haven't seen Madam Web. I really don't plan on seeing it unless I see it's on some streaming service, which, giving my guess, this will probably be on Netflix or Amazon Prime, even though I don't have Prime anymore. Um, but like, just the thought of him saying both sides of the argument and trying to get away with that really pissed me off because I was like, what exactly is your goal here, Chris? I hate shitting on people like this, but he is one of those people that for the longest time has pissed me off because he seemingly will just say that a movie is like the worst thing ever, and it when you end up watching the movie, when most normal people who aren't spiteful little shits watch the movie, they're like, it was fine. And apparently for these people, a movie has to be the best thing ever for them to give it a good review. And and then he just makes a hard left turn into I'm a cuck for Hollywood, which is what he's doing. No one can deny that he is selling out for Hollywood. He wants an in into the industry, so he's on purpose being as vague as possible. It's the same thing that Beyonce did, where she makes every song that comes out the most wide-ranging thing ever, and a bunch of teenage girls are like, "Oh, she wrote that song for me." She gives away so much of her normal life that she that that Hollywood photographers are always fucking taking pictures of her. She's made it to the point where she is not a human. She is not a real person. She is more of a product. And I feel like that's what Chris Stuckman is doing. He's trying his best to sell himself as a product, where he's like, "Oh, I'm the happy critic. I say good things about every movie all the time." And again, for someone like me, I'm trying to explain why exactly I don't think I'm that, because I'd say I'm more just open. If a movie is getting a lot of bad reviews, I'm going to look at it and say, okay, is this watchable? Is it entertaining? I'm looking at blunt facts to me, or blunt opinions of my own about the movie. I'm not going to lie if I don't like a movie. I'm not going to lie if I like a movie. Like, I'm going to tell the fucking truth. And I think critics like Chris Stuckman really are a fucking problem, because I did see a lot of the comments in the comment section. Most of the comments are against him, and I can see why. The people who went to his channel back when he started in what, 2011, something like that. He was one of the first big ones. I mean, not he wasn't there before Nostalgia Critic, but fuck Nostalgia Critic. But there's a considerable amount of his fans that have been following him for over a decade that are very disappointed in him for taking this route of just sucking off every Hollywood production company now. And it's really sad to see someone fall like this when other critics like Jeremy Johns, like, um, what's his name? Well, Drum Dums, that's another one. Um, there, I can't think of their names. But like there's plenty of movie channels that have kept their words and stopped being like have kept to their original themes without just being like, "Oh, I'm going to review a big Hollywood movie and say it's amazing so that I can get the next thing." Yeah, you can say good things about a Hollywood movie, but when it gets to the point where you're saying everything was perfect in a movie or everything was bad in a movie, that's where I feel like I have to call you out, and a lot of other people will call you out because nothing is perfect and nothing is most films are not all bad. Saying that most films that come out are all bad would just be a straight up lie. Most films that come out either direct to streaming or otherwise. And I just got removed from r slash movies making a making an argument about something regarding that. So I guess it's a contentious opinion. But I do actually want to talk about, on the film side of things, a few films on either side that people were toxically positive about and toxically negative about. And I want to start with the toxically positive ones because I have some ones that a lot of people have said like are perfect or some of the best in the genre and shit like that. And I'll start off with, well, probably maybe the least controversial, the Terrifier movies. Now, I own both of these because I actually did enjoy Terrifier 2. But one thing I will not say ever is that Terrifier 2 is perfect. Because, yes, it's an indie film that looks a lot better than its budget. This film was made for $250,000. And again, there's a lot of really cool shit in this movie. But to say that this film is perfect in any single way, I can't agree. The gore, yes, the gore is fantastic. But gore doesn't is not all you need to make a good movie. This film is also way too long. It is 2 hours and 19 minutes. The longest slasher ever, apparently. No slasher needs to be that long. There's a reason why Friday the 13th and all of its sequels are an hour and a half long. There's a very good reason, and it's because the pacing in this sucks at many points. The ending fight goes on for way too long. A lot of the scenes of gore go on to the point where they kind of become a bit monotonous, and there are many unneeded subplots that really never get resolved, or a character involved in the subplot just dies. So I do hate it when people constantly say that this is like a perfect horror film, that kind of shit. Um, and John Wick Chapter 4. Now, John Wick Chapter 1 through 3, I still enjoy all three. I do. I do think the second is the weakest of the first three, mostly due to a lack of mixing up of the action, the fact that the second action scene in the film comes an hour into a 2 hour movie, and also that the villain does suck. The villain isn't interesting. Ricardo Scarmaccio, that actor didn't really do that great of a job, I thought. And again, in all four movies, the John Wick movies, I don't think Keanu's that great of an actor. In the first three, he's a lot better than he is in the fourth, and I have to talk about this because I did review the fourth. I know there's a lot of people that'll disagree. I did not care for the fourth, really. I don't think it's a bad movie. I don't. There's impressive stuff in it, but I think this film bites off way more than it can chew. In the fact of it tries to be an action epic without mixing things up at all. Because you get the nunchuck fight where I'm like, okay, if he takes out a few people, that'll be fun. But a lot of the action isn't shot that well to me. There's a lot of um camera moves where it's just like going across the battlefield or the battlefield and everything. And for the most part, it's just a very monotonous film. A lot of wasted martial arts talent. Scott Adkins, Tony, or not Tony Jaa, Marco Zodor, um, Donnie Yen, all three are fucking wasted in the film. Keanu Reeves is giving his worst performance of all four films. He's really fucking bad. There's points where he just disappears from the film until like minute 45 of this 2 hour and 40 something minute movie. And just overall, I don't think Chad Stahelski knows what he's doing anymore. I think he's gone way too far with all of this. And there's so many people that say that it's like the best action movie ever. It's better than Hard Boiled. I am never going to agree with that. Hard Boiled is fucking 5,000 times the action movie John Wick Chapter 4 is. Also, to say that any of the John Wick films are perfect action movies, the fact that they use CGI blood when they're trying to be old school action films immediately takes that away because if you're trying to be a throwback, you don't get to do that. If you're trying to be a throwback and you don't use blood squibs, I'm not gonna acknowledge that you're a throwback. And also, the Bourne films. Now, overall, with the Bourne films, I don't hate. Okay, I am not a fan of Bourne Identity in the slightest. I think it's boring as shit. Boring as shit. Supremacy, I thought was okay. Um, Ultimatum is decent enough, even though the action scenes are still horribly done. And Bourne Legacy and Jason Bourne would be my favorites of the series. I think they do slightly get better as they go along. But another thing, I kind of like Bourne Legacy the best because I think Jeremy Renner is a much better actor than Matt Damon. He sells a lot of the action a lot more, even though they're still doing the quick cut thing. And in Jason Bourne, they stop with the quick cut. But the quick cutting alone immediately makes those not some of the best action films ever for me. And I think if people can't at least acknowledge that the editing is the exact same thing that Taken 2 and 3 do, or Columbiana, or Transporter 3, or any of these other films that they rag on for doing the exact same thing, but it's okay here because, oh, the director, Paul Greengrass, he does it right. I don't believe you for a fucking second. But yeah, and some films that people were toxically negative about, and I really don't understand why. Getaway, I know a lot of people fucking hate this film. Watching it, what are you going into this film for? If not cars exploding, explosions, um, a chase movie. Plenty of chase movies almost exactly like this in nature get so much praise. This has not one drop of fucking CGI action in it. All of the car chase stunts are practical. There's the really cool angles that you get on in the movie of all sections of the car as the stunts are happening. And again, you've got Ethan Hawke, who's a really cool main character. And again, you've got insane explosions throughout this film, and this was not a huge budget film. Yet, like, it's got like a 3% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think definitely people were toxically negative about this film because there there's a lot of things to appreciate with this. Um, no escape, easy. A lot of people say it's racist when it's literally just quote unquote travel exploitation where you go to another country and don't know the language, so you have to survive by any means necessary. There's a lot of people that call this shit racist, and I'm like, it's not fucking racist. It's simply a family trying to make it out alive. And people were definitely toxically negative about that. Kidnapped with Halle Berry. This is the Canadian copy, which if anybody else is going to get this film, get the Canadian version because it's the actual film. The US Blu-ray is only 82 minutes, missing 13 whole minutes of the film. But this film, very engaging. People kept saying Halle Berry's worst performance. There's no fucking way you can say that when Catwoman exists. There's no way you can look me in the fucking eye and say this is Halle Berry's worst performance or even one of her worst performances when you also have films like Perfect Stranger. But an adrenaline rush of a film, a bit more down to earth than your usual kidnapping thriller. And yeah, people were negative about this for seemingly no real reason other than, oh, let's rag on this movie. If people want to give legitimate criticism, go ahead, but the rhythm section got fucking butchered. And I'm like, this might have been a mistake. Putting this here that Eon Productions produced this film was probably a mistake because people were probably going to look for an action thriller. Now, on the back, they do say it's an action packed thriller. That is not true. It is mostly a self discovery, character study film, but even then, it's a well made film. There's some really cool sequences. There's a car chase that's all done in one take that's very impressive. Um, Blake Lively gives one of her best performances I've ever seen. And by the end, she does become a legitimate, believable badass. So, I don't know what the issue is there. And two movies that I know there's a lot of contention about, but both of these films get shit on constantly and we get told, "Oh, there's nothing redeeming about them. They're connected to conspiracy shit." There's nothing redeeming about these films, and that is Run, Hide, Fight, and Sound of Freedom. Yes, I own both of these films because I loved both of these films. I did not love these films because of any political affiliation, because my politics have nothing to do with my enjoyment of a film. If a film is shoving politics in my face, then sure. If it's a film that's specifically shoving things like racial issues into something where it does not belong, or it's shoving some like gay agenda issue or whatever thing in my face, then yes, I'll have an issue with it. But first off, Run, Hide, Fight is just a legitimately intense action drama. Also, thriller. It's legitimately thrilling. Isabel May does a fantastic job here. And I can see why she got onto uh, 1889, I think, was the Taylor Sheridan show. And I hope she gets to do a lot more things after this. You've also got freaking Rhoda Mitchell, Thomas Jane. I love Thomas Jane. Um, the villain played by Eli Brown, I think, did a great. I think Eli did a great job. Um, Treat Williams and Barbara Crampton show up. Action and horror genre alums. And overall, I'm glad that I own this Blu-ray from France. I think it's from AB. I think it's French. I'm glad I own this Blu-ray, and most of the reviews I've seen online from people outside of the US, because this film was distributed by the Daily Wire. And I mentioned this in my review because I was like, people kept saying the Daily Wire made this film. Daily Wire is owned by Ben Shapiro, created by Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring. But this film was completed before Ben Shapiro even laid eyes on it. He just distributed it in the US through Daily Wire Plus. And a lot of people will make the, well, false truth for them that Daily Wire produced this or made this or had anything to do with it. Most people outside the US that have watched this had no affiliation with um, Ben Shapiro at all. If people want to say Ben Shapiro produced it or was an executive producer, like it says on IMDb, which is not true, there's writing here. Prove you wrong right now. Executive producers Daniel Cox, Bobby Campbell, David Gilbury, and Charles Dorfman. There were four executive producers, produced by Dallas Sonier and Amanda Presmick, who run Cinestate, or now Bonfire Legend. So the people who keep wanting to say that, shut up because you're wrong. I'm going to tell you shut up because you're attacking a film. You talk about how much you love indie films, but then you attack an indie film because it's set during a school shooting, but at no point are the school shooters treated as if they are the good guys in this situation. And again, it's a movie. It touches on some serious subject matter, but you can also choose to not watch the film, and you don't have to bitch about it. So, yes, this is a film that was at the forefront of a lot of toxic negativity, for sure, especially on YouTube, and also Sound of Freedom. Now, I have not done a new video about it because I already did a video. In sometime soonish, I do want to do another video and talk a bit more in depth about the film itself. But this was a very effective human trafficking drama thriller. It did get labeled as an action film, which I did have a bit of an issue with. A lot of cinemas labeled it as an action film, and a lot of people went in, excuse me, and felt a bit disappointed by that. And I can understand that. It makes sense to be disappointed by a film that is labeled as action and there's literally like no action in the film. But to attack this film, call it conservative propaganda when there are no politics in this film. I saw somebody on my thing where I mentioned Sound of Freedom getting unneeded hate. Because if you legitimately find filmmaking errors or something that is horribly done in this film, it's cool to say that. But when you're attacking the film and saying that it's disrespectful to actual human trafficking victims, it doesn't say it's not 100% true to the story based on. Most movies say that and you're perfectly fine with it, but this film, because Jim Caviezel, who played Jesus, is in it, um, gotta shit on it because it's Christian. This is barely a Christian film. There's one line, God's children are not for sale, which is a pretty badass line. Not political at all, not really that religious. If this is a Christian movie, then Tyler Perry's movies are Christian movies, and they're also barely Christian movies. But to shit on a movie just because it has anything relating to Christian values is pretty small-minded. Um, that's like shitting on a movie just because it alludes to racial values. Like, I don't do that. I specifically am like, yeah, I don't like how it went after that. Shitting on a movie just because it's about human trafficking, trying to tie it to QAnon shit, which is not true because this film was finished in 2018 before any of that Q shit started. Again, another film that got toxically negative comments, and it's actual toxicity because it's people trying to get mad at a movie that was a legitimate like surprise hit, and they're trying to drive people away by making all these videos talking about it's a conspiracy theory, it's trying to tie itself to Jewish so and so, it's tying itself to conspiracy theories when this is based on true events. And if you want to deny that human trafficking happens or that most of the things that happen in this film, even though there is video footage of major events that happen in this film at the end, if you want to make fun of how it marketed itself, where it was like buy a ticket for someone else, go ahead. That doesn't make you right. And again, personally, a lot of the people that have been making videos about the AC was cut off in our theater, that happened to me. I wish I'd taken a video of it because it definitely was happening. But yeah, like, again, it's a movie worth watching. If you don't like it legitimately for legit reasons other than what I wouldn't consider a legit reason, which is it's Christian, it's not really. Um, it doesn't handle the subject matter well. Okay, tell me how you'd handle it. Uh, it doesn't adhere to actual factual evidence. Okay, show me where the facts are. I'd love for somebody to show me. But I think that makes enough of my point. I don't need to get out more, but the toxic negativity definitely um in both of these was super strong when they both came out. And I just hope this video, some people have watched this and been like, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't be. Well, I'm not trying to drive people away from Chris Stuckmann. I'm hoping that Chris Stuckmann changes his whole tune about this and actually and tries to do what he used to. But yeah, mostly I've been rambling, but that's just me. But yeah, I hope people enjoyed the video. If you want to comment about anything I said down below, please keep it civil. I'm not trying to fight about politics or anything. Never am I actually trying to fight anybody. But yeah, put those down below and Move Revere Next Door out.